Hello everyone, my name is Ahmed El Koutbia. I am a certified Red Hat instructor and examiner at InnoSoft Gulf in Dubai. Today I would like to share with you a video on how to manage services and daemons in RHEL 7. To get us started, let's assume that our manager, whose name is Ghafwan, called us on Monday morning at 9 o'clock and asked us to install and deploy a web server on the new RHEL 7 server that the company has just purchased. The general approach of managing services in RHEL or in Red Hat Enterprise Linux consists of installing a service, enabling a service, starting the service, and testing it. So let's see how we can do this in RHEL 7. Okay. So first of all, what I'll do here, I will try to see if the actual HTTP server is installed. So I'm going to do yum list installed and then grep HTTPD. So it looks like the web server is not installed. I'll just go ahead and install it. Okay, so now it is installed. We will go ahead and start it. Just 1 second. So to start such service, what we will do is system control start HTTPD. And typically what happens is that we can add the extension .service, means that we are interested to start the service unit of the HTTP daemon. As we will see later, for a specific daemon, we can have more than one unit. We can have, for instance, the path unit. We can have the socket unit. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, let's see how we can go ahead and enable this particular service. So again, the command will be system control and then enable HTTPD. Okay. Now, how are we going to find out if actually the service has started and enabled? What we can do, we can issue the command status systemctl and then status httpd.service. And then once we issue that command, you can see that it says here that the service is active, running, in the running state, and also it's enabled. Okay. Also, we get some additional information like the ID of the main process ID. In this case is 4714. And then here you can see the first few lines of the log files of the HTTP server. Okay, good. Now that we've started the process and then we've enabled it, what we can also do, we can check the process. We can check also the process and who is running it by using the process ID. And for that, we can run the command ps up. And then the process ID, in this case, it's 4714. Okay. So we can see here, even with the ps command, we can see a list of a specific process and who is the owner of that process. In this case, it's root, and the process name is the HTTPD. All right. Now, another question that we could ask while we are working on this is that how do we find out if this process is actually bound to the right port? As we know that the HTTP server is typically bound to port number 80. So to check if it's bound to the right port, we can do netstat and -tulpn, and then we can say grep HTTPD. So what it tells us here is that we have a process or a daemon HTTPD which is bound to port number 80. Okay, and then we can also see if we can connect to it. There are different ways to do that. I can share with you a couple of ways. One is by using netcat -v means verbose localhost and then 80, which means that we want to connect to a service running on port 80 on localhost. So here it says that we are connected to that particular service. Okay. Another way we can do this is we can just go ahead and use Firefox. Before we do that, I just want to create a test page. So I'm going to say echo hello world from Dubai, and then we'll go ahead and put that in var www.html and index.html. So if I run the Firefox on the background and try to go to my server, which is server 0, I can see the message that says hello world from Dubai. Good. So with this example under our belt, let's examine additional commands that we can use to control services in RHEL 7. And then here, for instance, let's say we want to stop a service. So basically what we can do is system ctl stop httpd. Okay, so that will actually stop the web server. So you can check the status. So here it says in terms of the message here it says inactive and dead. Yeah. Okay. Another point that I would like to illustrate in this presentation is the difference, or the fundamental difference, between reloading a service and restarting a service. Restarting a service will essentially change the process ID of the service, whereas reloading the service, it will maintain the same process ID. Reloading the service typically happens when we change the configuration files and we just want to reload whatever those changes are without necessarily changing the process and the connections associated with that particular process. So let's have a look at that. So if we do system control status httpd, so it says it's inactive. So let's go ahead and start it. Okay, I will check the status again. So now it's running, and what's important for us now to remember is the process ID, which is 4875. That's the process ID here. And let's see what happens when we restart this process. So instead of start here, I'll just issue the command restart. And I will check the status now. Well, notice now that the process ID has changed, that now it's 4905. Okay? So restarting the process again means that it will actually change the process ID. Whereas reloading it, we are expecting it to maintain that same process ID. So let's try to reload the process. And the process ID we have now is 4905. So if I do this, and I check the status here, and what you can see is the main process ID hasn't changed. It's 4905. Okay. So now let's say or assume that we have now a request from our manager to provide him a report listing all the active, inactive, enabled, disabled, and failed services on the new RHEL 7 machine that the company has just acquired. Again, just for review, an active process means essentially it's a started process. Inactive means it's a stopped process, whereas enabled means that this daemon will start, or the service will start automatically when the system reboots, and inactive means that it will not, disabled means that it will not boot automatically. We'll have to explicitly start it ourselves. So let's go ahead and so apply this for one specific service, like the SSHD daemon. So if I want to know if that service is actually enabled, what we can do is system control SSHD is active SSHD. So it tells me now it's active, which means it's running. If I want to know if it's enabled, all I need to do is enabled. And then here it says yes, it is enabled. This is some information we get about only one specific service. What if we want to know the status of all the services? And for that, there is a specific command or set of commands that we can use to help us. So what we can do is system control list units. List units, and then here the type of the units that we are interested on are the service units. Okay, so here it will provide us a list of all the services which are active, essentially running. We can check for specific ones if we are interested. We can do grep httpd, for instance. We can also count how many services are running actually. Yeah, we can do that. What if we want to have a list of all the services that are both active and inactive? Well, to do that, all we have to do is add an additional option here called all. Okay, so here it will provide us with a list of all the active and inactive services, and they should be more than what we had with respect to the active services. So you can see it's 132 versus some 70 something that we saw earlier. Okay. Sometimes also what we want to know, by default, we want to know what's the status of specific services. Are they enabled or disabled? And to do that, there is another command that we can use, which is system control. Again, the command is list unit files, and then here the type we are interested in are the service. So here you get a list of all the status of all these services, whether they will boot automatically or not when we restart our server. So we can actually check, for instance, for the HTTPD, and it says it's already running. I'm sorry, excuse me, I didn't want to do that. I want to do grep, and yeah, it says it's enabled. Okay, good. Now what if we want to know what is the list of all the services that have failed? So what we can do is go back to our command, or we can issue actually a new command, and then it's system control, and then failed, and then type service. So that will give us the list of the failed services. Okay, good. Another topic that we are going to talk about in this additional part of the presentation is the idea of dependencies between services and service units. So far we have been just discussing only service units. However, there are other type of units that a given service can depend on. They include the socket unit and the path unit. So to listen to a connection, a daemon such as the HTTPD use sockets. A socket is essentially a point of communication between the client and the server, and it is passed to the daemon when a connection is established. Services can actually be started as dependencies of other services. For instance, a service can be started by a path unit when the file system changes. And a good example of that is the cup service, which can be started if the path unit if the path unit receives a message that the file system has changed. So to illustrate this point, I'll go ahead and use the cup service as an example and see how we can understand this better. Now, the cups unit or the cup service, as we know, it will help us to manage printing. And so there you go. I'll just go ahead and show you an example. So for instance, I am interested first to see the status of the cups service. Okay, it says it's active and it's running. How can I also have the status of the path unit? I can do the same thing, but instead of the service extension, I will just add the path extension. It says it's active and waiting. Yeah. And then also I can look at the socket unit associated with the same daemon. So here, if you can do this, you will see also that is the socket unit. So here the discussion is about how are these dependencies are established. So what we said is that we can actually take down the cups service, and it will be started later on automatically by the path unit once a message or once the file system changes. How will the file system changes? Well, a good example is just basically printing a document. That will definitely change the folder, which is the var spool cups, and that as a result of that, the cup service will be started. So let's have a quick look at an example of that. First, I'd like to see what's happening in the cups folder. So if I go to spool cups, so currently I really yeah, excuse me, I don't have anything in this folder. So, and what I will do now is I will stop the cup service. So I will do system control stop cups service. Okay, so what it is telling us here, it says stopping the cup service, but it will still be activated by the cups.path or the cups.socket. I mean, it still can be. I mean, it's not mandatory, but it can be activated by either one of these units. So I'm also curious to know the status of these units. So let's just have a look at that. So the service, now it says it's inactive, dead. You can see that here. And if I do the same thing to the path, what does it say? It says it's waiting. Yeah, it's active and it is waiting. Socket, let's have a look at that, associated with the cups daemon. Yeah, it says it's active and it's listening. It's listening to connections, obviously. All right. Okay, so what we have here is we have the cup service is down, and then we have this unit, which is the cups path unit. It's active and it's waiting, and the socket unit associated with the cups daemon is also active and it's listening. So let's see now if what we said is that if we change the file system, what we are expecting is the cups.service unit will start automatically. Okay? Well, to change the file system, all we have to do is just basically print a document. So here I'm just gonna use Firefox. Okay, I'm gonna run it in the background. I'm just going to go ahead and print a document now. I'm going to print it to a PDF printer. Yeah. All right. And I will check also. I will check also the yeah. So I will check here this cups folder to see if actually there are some documents in the queue, and it looks like we have a couple of documents here that have been just created. And so here the file system changed. And so what we are expecting is now the patch unit will detect this change and automatically will start the CUPS service. So if we go ahead and see the status of our CUPS service, that's interesting. We can see that now it's active. So what we are illustrating here is that the dependencies that we can have between the units, associated with the daemons. So we can have dependencies between the socket unit and the patch unit with the actually main service unit. So even if the main service unit for the CUPS is actually down, it can be activated. For instance, if by another unit such as the cups.pat. And in this case, the cups.pat will make such change when the file system changes. Okay, good. So the last point in my presentation that I would like to talk about is this idea of masking a service. So far, our manager, Mr. Ghafwan, should be happy with the work that we have done so far. So let's assume that he has a final task for us, which consists of disabling the network manager service. He also requested that other system administrators of this new RHEL 7 server should not be able to start this service. Basically, he explained that the reason behind this is to ensure that the network manager service does not conflict with other existing network services. I'm sure some of you have had the experience of issues associated with the network manager. So here, not only we want to disable it, but we want to ensure that other administrators can't start it accidentally. So to do that, what we have to do is to mask the service. So let me just go ahead and check the status of Network Manager. Okay, so it's running. I'll just go ahead and stop it. Okay, so yeah, I'll just check the status now. Yeah, it says it's inactive. Okay, great. Now, how can we then mask this service? Simply, we can do system control mask network manager. Okay, so notice here what happens is that a link, a symbolic link of the service script is established to dev null, which means that when we try to start this network manager service, normally nothing will happen. So let's check that. So let's say another system administrator accidentally tries to start it. So if he does this, then it says failed to issue the method call. It says the network manager service is masked. So this is a nifty feature that RHEL 7 provides us to actually make sure that services that we don't want them to start accidentally, we can just go ahead and mask them. What if we want to change this? All we need to do is just do unmask, essentially. Yeah, so, and then what happens now if I try to start it? It's okay, no problem. And I can check the status of my network manager and it's up and running. Okay, great. So this will conclude this presentation regarding managing daemons and services in RHEL 7. Thank you for watching this video, and I wish you the best luck in your career. And should you want to contact me, you can actually contact our company. Again, it's InnoSoft Gulf in Dubai, and here are our contact details. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.